Welcome to a very snowy morning in Alaska, and underneath our lean-to here, behind me, I have something I'm very excited about that we're going to be working on today. But first, I was just shutting down our little generator, and we run this in the morning and then a little bit in the evening to charge up the batteries for our solar system. We don't get a lot of sun in the winter, and since it's already running, I'll usually just plug in a little extension cord and I'll give the chickens a little bit of light. But this is our little generator setup that I've been using this winter, and this has just been a game changer, I'm going to call it. So this is an insulated generator box, and this is kind of like a multiple generator fitting box. I've got a lot of different holes and stuff in here, but I'm going to pull it off real quick. This is an older model Honda 2000 generator. This is one we've been primarily using this winter. If you do not run this thing in that insulated box and it's cold out, I'm talking like under 10 degrees Fahrenheit, it will only last about a half an hour. What happens is it gets moisture in there and it's so cold outside, it freezes inside the carburetor and it'll just shut it off. With this insulated box here, we've been able to run this thing 8 hours at a time in sub-zero temperatures, absolutely no problems. I don't have to put any seafoam in it or heat or separate the water from the fuel or anything. I just put gas in it, I put the box on it, I start it, and she runs absolutely perfect. One thing I did do on this one is I put a little tiny exhaust extension on here, and then I have a little screw-on fitting just to get the exhaust to stick out the box a little bit more. And then the box itself is pretty simple. I mentioned it fits different generators. That's why it has different holes. It has some air intake holes so it can get some fresh air. I built the box just out of old siding or leftover siding when we resided the cabin, so it didn't really cost me anything. And I also had some leftover foam. I forget what we were using it for, but it's foam insulation. It's 1 inch, so it just has minimal insulation in there. And what this box does is when you put it over the generator, the heat from the generator gets trapped in the box and it just keeps the generator warm. So when I take this thing off and you touch the generator, it's nice and hot, and that keeps the thing from freezing on the inside. So I'm gonna put the box back on and we'll run it again later tonight. We're gonna get the players pulled out and we're gonna take a look at what we're working on today. If you've been watching any of our videos recently, you may know that we purchased a new property north of here, and we're going to be moving out there this spring, working on building our shop. So we wanted a new power source for out there. We've had an eye out for a used generator, and one of our friends actually called us and they wanted to know if we wanted to buy one of their old ones that they just had sitting around, and it was actually a perfect fit for what we wanted. So this is it. This is going to be our new generator out there, and this is kind of different than any generator we've had. This is a lot bigger, and this is a diesel generator. So everything we've had up to this point was just a small gas generator. I think the biggest one we've ever had was like a 3,500 watt gas generator. And this is an 8 kilowatt Kubota diesel generator. And it's a little different. You don't just plug things into it. You actually have to wire this thing into whatever you're powering. And the folks we got this one from, they bought like a few of them. It's a package deal, so they never actually used this or ran it. It's been used. It has, from what I can tell, about 5,800 hours on it, and it's a 2016 model. And from the markings on the fuel filter when it was changed in 2019. So I believe that 2019 was the last time that this thing was ran. And this is the control box for it. This is actually a control box for a different Kubota generator, so the hours don't match up with what this actually has on it. And when this generator was disassembled, the whole control panel was just cut off. So we got to rewire this in. We got to hook a battery up to it, and I got to figure out a way to get some fuel to it, and we're going to see if we can get this thing to fire up today. Well, I'll be the first one to admit I do not know a lot about diesel engines or diesel generators, but we're going to see what we can do. I've already put some little butt connectors on this end, and this should be pretty easy. All the wires are just going to match up to the same wires on this side, and then we'll have our little control panel mounted. This is also something that's new to us right here, is having a generator that you actually have to have a battery on. Every generator we've ever had has just been a pull start, And this big bad boy doesn't even have a pull start. So it's got a little mini starter right here. We've got the positive terminal hooked up, or the positive battery cable. And then I grounded the ground wire to the generator itself right there. Let's hook up this positive one. Let's see if we got any power at the control box. Should turn it on a little first. Something's not connected right. Battery's got power. Let's see if that ground's good enough.
So it wasn't plugged in?
This little connection right here wasn't plugged in all the way. That was unplugged a little bit.
How is it?
Okay, that's good news. We got power going to the little controller, and it's got a little glow plug warm up. This thing also, oh yeah, it's pumping fuel out of there. Okay, cool. This is awesome. So I got to put some new fuel lines on there. When this thing was taken out of commission, it was used up on the North Slope in Alaska where they drove for oil. And when they took it out, apparently they were upgrading generators. They just cut the fuel line. So this thing, from what I've researched, it has two separate fuel lines. One is a fuel line where it actually sucks the fuel into the motor, and it sucks in a constant amount of fuel, but sometimes the motor doesn't need that much fuel, so it has a return line, and the fuel it doesn't use gets thrown down that other line, and I'm just gonna put them both into the same little fuel container. I got a little gas can full of diesel, and that's what we're gonna try. But like I was saying, for the glow plugs heating up, this has that, and then this one also has a little oil pan heater. So it's got like a heater on the bottom of the oil pan, and it has a block heater. So this thing is like built for cold weather. Let's see if we can get some fuel lines on this thing. See how it's all cracked? See it?
Do you have enough to replace it?
Let's see. Well, this is going good. We've got the one fuel line on, and we're still kind of like planning where we're actually going to have this thing in the future. That's why it's kind of in this little sled we have it in right now. And it's also in the sled because when we went and picked this thing up, it's winter here, and it was up on a mountaintop where these folks live, and it was frozen in the ice. So we went up there and we chiseled it out with them, and we put it in the sled, and we hauled it down the hill with our Polaris, and we loaded it up on the trailer and brought it home. And this generator, I don't know how much it weighs, but it is like, it's extremely heavy. But this thing is very cool. I think if we weren't able to get this used generator off them, we probably wouldn't end up with as nice or as high quality of a generator. So we're extremely thankful that they thought of us, and we're gonna hook up one more fuel line. We're gonna see if we can get this thing going. Let's cut this one. Be cut right. Okay. So that's the return line. This is the fuel line. What do you think? Give her a try, see if she fires up. Ready? Glow plugs. For not having been started up in 3.5 years. I mean, this thing, it smoked a little at the beginning, but this thing runs like amazing. It's a lot quieter than I thought it was going to be. Pretty cool features on this. So this is, like I said, it's different than any generator we've had. This is water cooled, so it has a radiator on it. It has a fan. It has an alternator, which is really cool because when this thing turns on, it charges the battery. And I put my little multimeter on there, and it was at like almost 14 volts. So that means that the alternator was working. Awesome machine. Let's fire it up again one more time and make sure she's still working for us. I'm not even gonna pretend I don't know anything about this thing. So this is the breaker for it. It's not hooked to anything. Look at that. It's at 120 volts, which is like a regular plug. I think what they have is they have this little clip right here. They bridge those. And I think that maybe drops it down to 120 volts because this is supposed to run at 240 volts.
So you just take that out?
I don't know. There's like tons of different ways you can wire this thing to get what you need. Pretty pumped. This thing is awesome. It runs so smooth, and there's still a lot of learning to go on this thing. So it's supposed to run at 240 volts. That's at least what it says on there, but I think they have it wired in here to run at 120 volts because that's what I'm getting. There's a little, on the bus bar here, there's a little connector between the two, and I think that maybe that's dropping it down to 120 volts. I don't really know. So I got to figure out how to wire this thing, and I'm going to need to because we are going to set this thing up eventually when we get it up there to do like an automatic start to charge our solar batteries. So when the batteries drop down to a certain point, this thing will just fire up on its own, charge the batteries till they're full, and it'll shut off. And I need 240 volts to do that. And this thing is the motor on it is a D1105, and I was told by my neighbor who has a Kubota tractor that the D11 means that this is an 11 horsepower. So pretty cool. I checked the oil. It looks like it has a fresh oil change. It's got nice antifreeze in it. I mean, I think this thing is just ready to go for us. So I'm gonna get everything put away, get it all cleaned up, and it has been snowing for like 3 or 4 days straight, and we've just been sitting inside watching it snow. So we gotta get out there today and we gotta take care of some snow removal. Pretty cool, huh?
I'm very excited for you.
This thing runs so good.
Is that your favorite word?
What?
This thing? It sounds like a truck when it started. That's the moon. I think it's like 2 days shy. Well, it turned out to be a phenomenal afternoon. It was snowing quite a bit earlier. We got all our work done. We decided to take the dogs on a walk. They do really well, especially Bandit when it's this warm. It is so warm. It has been freakishly warm all winter. And I mean, I guess the bright side is that we get a really awesome day out here. It's just so gorgeous. All the clouds and the snow since it just freshly snowed. Just gonna take a short walk and then head back to the cabin. Come on, Bo. Handsome fella. Oh no. Oh no, Bo. Come on. Run. Run. to take these lights out too? Making you a bed 6 times then. I've done my picture. Oh no! Oh my goodness. We're tackling the chicken coop. I had tried to put it off till a little bit later when we are possibly going to be moving our chickens, but with these warm temperatures it's just not working. So we just put straw over their droppings in there all winter, and it works great actually. Most of the time it just freezes solid until it warms up, and then that's when the chickens start scratching in there and they make a mess of everything, so I usually clean it out then. So it's looking good in there now. Eric and I got it cleaned up. We're going to spread some new straw and get their nesting boxes ready. This whole winter has just been so mild, and the chickens really were pretty much unscathed, I feel like. So it was the easiest winter of them all, shall I say. Just a future note, we never have really mentioned it, but when we built this coop, it is like an open air design type of coop, so it has really good ventilation. And in the future, I would not build this style of coop. I believe it is just a little bit too cold where we live for this. So in the future, we would do some sort of insulated enclosed coop.
That's 18 eggs right there.
Ooh, 18.
Yeah.
That's from a little bit of yesterday's.
Yeah, I know, but the warm weather, the feed we've been giving these chickens, and the treats, and me running the generator and plugging in a little light for them every once in a while, I think has just really helped out with our egg production. It's almost insane for this type of year how many eggs we've been getting. So we got all these fresh eggs, plus I think we still have like almost a full 5-gallon bucket of limed eggs. All right.
We have 21 hens?
21 hens? No, 20. We've only been using 3 of them. This one for sure.
A neat little water hack that Eric and I figured out this year. It doesn't always work, especially when it's really cold, like negative teens or something like that. But we switched over to all rubber bowls for our water in the winter, and you can just like break free the ice. This is not a good example because it's warm today, but you can just break free the ice or like smack it against something and hit it on the ground, and it usually pops out. In the past, we have damaged, sadly, some of our containers, so these are awesome. The only downside to these is they do tend to grow some algae in the summer months, so I don't really use them for that. I think we finally have a break in the snow, and I'm gonna get the beehives, their entrances cleaned off of snow. I haven't been doing that all that much this year. My whole theory is kind of to keep them really insulated and not let the sun hit them too much. I don't want them to think that it's summertime and they can come out. So far they're still alive, which is absolutely awesome, but I'm a little cautious to say that they're gonna make it for sure. We have had a hive not pull through when I thought they were going to. They actually just made it to like mid-March, which is really, really late. They pretty much made it the whole overwintering season. These guys, if they get into April, then for sure we can confidently say they overwintered. So at least they're alive right now. The prep we did this year is pretty much similar to what we've done the last 2 years, and it kind of works, I guess. Sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. We have polystyrene hives, which are just foam hives for the bees themselves. And then when it comes to winter time, we put extra foam. This year we went with like 1.5 inches and we squished the hives together. So I had really wanted to do that last year, but we didn't get a chance. Or had wanted to do it the previous year, I mean, but we did get a chance with these hives. Underneath all this foam, we have 3 medium boxes, so the bees occupy 2. They probably only occupy 1. One was a full thing of their honey, and the third one is actually a quilt box, which helps with moisture in the hive in the winter. That is a problem mainly when we start getting into those really cold temperatures and the fact that they're in here so long. You want to make sure that the hives are really well ventilated. So we actually have open screen bottoms as the bottom board, so there's a lot of good ventilation coming in through the bottom. In each of the boxes there are Reflectix boards on the sides just to kind of provide additional insulation and help with heat management. And then we have a candy board, and that I think is a really big trick to them being successful, is we have extra sugar in there for when they run out of their honey, because they usually do run out of their honey about this time. And then on top of that is the inner cover with more Reflectix, and then we have the quilt board, and then the tops with more foam. So there's actually a lot going on in there. Probably one of the biggest things Eric and I have found is that the bees have to have access to their food. They can die or starve if the food is just away from where they are and they can't break their cluster. So we've had to be kind of careful how we manage the hives going into fall. I think these are doing okay. I'm pretty optimistic, but we really, again, won't know until it's April and we can get in there and see just how well they're doing. But I'm gonna get the entrances cleaned off right now. Maybe you can listen to them today, hon. Sorry, girls, you didn't make it. Okay. So what I'm doing is just listening for the bees. You can usually hear them if you disturb them enough. My goal when I come out here is to not do that. So like I said, I really haven't been out here doing that this much this winter. But there is one drawback to that. The bees do need to come out to go to the bathroom, and you don't want to like completely lock them in and not have an entrance. I went and ahead and cleared the entrances off, and there is a collection of dead bees at the bottom. That's to be expected. But what I'm not going to do this spring is get in there and like really clean it out. In the past, I have taken off this little reducer we have on the front, and I will kind of scrape out the dead bees, but I'm just trying not to disturb them that much. I know they're alive. They sound pretty good. So we're just going to have to wait until probably April before we can actually open them up and get in there and give them extra food if they're still alive. We're in the shelter logic, replenishing our soaked feed for our chickens. With the warm weather, we have been able to start soaking it again. And we feed them whole grains, so looks like that once it's been soaked. And we've soaked our chicken feed for a very long time. It helps you cut down on your chicken feed costs because it helps them feel a little bit fuller. For obvious reasons, we cannot do it in the winter. It'll just freeze like right away. But with the warm temperatures, we've been able to feed them a little bit of a scoop here and there, and they can get it down before it actually freezes. If you soak this long enough, it will actually start to ferment, which provides even more benefits for your chickens. Right now, we've just been soaking it for a day or two, so I'm not certain it's actually fermenting yet. We started feeding our chickens whole grains back in Oregon. It was a little bit easier to source them there. Once we moved here, it was quite tricky, and it has become really difficult the last year or so. I've had to just like completely change how I feed our chickens. I know that's just true for everyone. Things are getting hard to get and they're at a very high cost. But this is what we buy, and this is what it looks like. So this is whole grain foods that have been ground up. It is field peas, so yellow field peas. Sometimes you'll see them in green. There is sunflower seeds. I actually add back in more sunflower seeds. There is barley, which Alaska grows quite well. There is oats, corn, and then there's also a few other ingredients that the producer or the supplier puts in there. And that's because this is meant to be like a whole food, so a complete diet for your chickens. So you can just feed this and they'll have a balanced diet. Usually when we make up the grains, we have to make sure that our proportions are right and add a few little extras in there. So I'm just gonna dump that right in there. Like I mentioned, I add in extra grains to help cut the cost down. If I can still get like crimped barley or crimped oats or something like that, I will add that into here. And sunflower seeds, I just really love feeding them sunflower seeds. I think that's an awesome healthy treat to feed chickens. In the winter months, we also add scratch to our chickens' diet, so corn. Generally speaking, corn is not in my mixture for the summer. So if I can get my own blend, I will not mix it up with corn. That blend does have it. And you can see this scratch here, it's Alaskan scratch, and it has corn and hard red winter wheat, which is awesome because that is great for the chickens in the winter. It's high in protein, and I cannot find it individually sold. I can only find it in a scratch blend. So I'm a big fan of this stuff, but we just add it to their food in the winter months. So that's my last bag, and then I'll be phasing out of that. And of course, we're adding extra sunflower seeds. And I have lids on all these containers because the wild birds also love to come in here and feast on this. So we have to keep it covered up. This bin system's kind of been awesome this year. We didn't used to have it set up this way. It definitely takes up a little more space. And lastly, over here, I've already replenished the pellets, but we have some pellets. And that's something that we're probably all used to seeing. It's a complete feed too, so it has everything your chickens need in there to live. For the last 5+ years or so, we have been really into making our own food for our chickens, but because of what I was mentioning earlier, I have had to resort to having pellets for them. I guess partially that is a little bit of a personal choice. Some of it is definitely economically. It has just been very difficult to find this food, and it is a little bit expensive. And the pellets are actually pretty expensive too. I don't know how much pellets cost where you're at, but when we first moved here, I don't know how much they were when we first moved here. I'm guessing anywhere from $17 to $19 per bag. We didn't really feed our chickens pellets, so that's why I don't know the cost. We started adding that into their diet about a year ago, and I want to say they consume maybe 25% pellets compared to everything else. The reason being is that we go on trips, and I do not want them to run out of food, so I want to make sure that they always have food in there. So we do feed them quite a bit of pellets now, but recently what we've paid for a bag of pellets is $32. So it has went up tremendously since we have moved here. A few of the last things we have are some black larvae or black soldier larvae. They're like these little grubs. So similar to mealworms and the chickens, they absolutely love these. I would consider these a treat. It is protein, so it's definitely healthy for them, we'll say that. But I find that I'm just not giving it to them that much. I just give them a scoop every once in a while. I'll probably add just a little bit in there today. I was actually able to get these for a really good price, so pretty excited about those. And I have a few other little supplements here. We have cayenne and oregano in this big container. I don't give this to them all the time. It's just a supplement, so I'll put a little bit in here now. I haven't given it to them in a few weeks, so just a little, maybe not even like a quarter cup. We have some brewer's yeast on hand, and I have some kelp meal. That's mainly for when we have chicks. If we let the moms hatch out little babies, I want to make sure that they have all the nutrition they need in their feed. And we also have some oyster shell. Doesn't look quite like the oyster shell I'm familiar to seeing, but that's what we picked up, and some limestone. There was a oyster shell shortage. There still kind of is. So it's a little bit hard to find that, and the cost has went up quite a bit. That's why we also have that limestone. We were using that when we couldn't get any. You can also feed back eggshells. We do that too, but I was finding it wasn't providing enough calcium in their diet. We don't give our chickens grit at all because they have access to outside. Even in the winter months, I don't know how they find rocks, or maybe they just have rocks in their gizzard from the summertime. So we don't have to add any grit. And this is pretty much ready to come inside. Eric and I have extra bags of feed. We like to pick it up when we go into town and make sure we are well stocked for the times that maybe we go and they're out of something. We're grabbing some fish while we're out here, or seafood. Eric and I are fortunate enough to be able to get, I guess, food or frozen meat that sometimes folks don't want for whatever reason. Usually it's age, and I mean, that is just amazing. I have to say I'm really grateful for that. We have some old salmon, some old halibut. This is a chicken favorite. And we have some shrimp. So we're going to be pulling that out today. I haven't given them shrimp before. Pretty excited about that. Some of this is processed and like grocery store food, which I have to be a little more careful how I feed that to the dogs. But some of it is like really good stuff. They love moose meat and caribou meat. Sadly, Bandit has been diagnosed with early kidney disease. So we have had to kind of completely change how we're feeding him. In general, our dogs probably consume about 50% kibble or commercial feed, and then the other amount is just whatever we can get from them. So they do eat a lot of fish. Sometimes if we were able to get an animal that year, they will get some of that as well. But Bandit now is eating like a specialized diet that we make up for him. It's a lot of vegetables, carbohydrates, less protein, but we are sourcing that meat from the grocery store. It's definitely made our lives a little bit harder, but he does seem to be doing very well on it. So, but what I'm getting with that is the dogs who have kidney disease, they can't eat certain things. You have to be really careful with what you're exposing them to in their diet. So we have to be very restrictive with this kind of stuff. You definitely can't have anything processed, but it is what it is, and we're just grateful that we have this food for them. I'm gonna head inside and make the chickens a nice treat for this afternoon. Along with the chickens' daily winter feed, Eric and I like to provide hot meals for them during these cold months. And the main thing that I'm focusing on is protein. So increasing their protein in the cold, that can be achieved a multitude of ways. And what the protein does is as they're digesting it, it actually gives off heat. So you've probably heard that. You can feed chickens that in the winter months and they will get a little bit warmer, so to speak, when they're digesting it. Probably the first thing that comes to mind is bugs. So chickens eat a lot of bugs if they are allowed access, free range to grass or pasture. And we do have the black soldier fly larvae, mealworms, those are good. But also a little less, I guess, conventional is fish or meat. You can definitely feed them fish, carcasses. If you are a hunter, we've put carcasses out there and the chickens just love that. They get a bunch of protein that way. Another way that you may have heard of is cat food. So you can actually just literally feed them cat food and it will help them in a lot of ways. One thing I like to do too when they are molting is increase their protein because it takes a lot of energy and protein to make new feathers, and that is really important for our girls to be feathered out in the winter. Other ways you can increase more protein in their diet is adding other additional grains and seeds that we mentioned out there. I mean, you can feed chickens a wide array of grains and seeds. The hard red winter wheat is probably one of my favorites if you can find that. They're soft white wheat. And then I have sesame seeds out here just for fun. These are actually ours. I haven't been able to figure out how we could feed this to them economically, but seeds like that, flax seeds, are also good for them if you want to give them those as a treat. And those seeds have oils in them or fats. So you're also introducing a little bit of fat to their diet, which is another thing that we focus a little bit on in the winter. Traditionally, we don't just like give our chickens fat in their daily diet, but in the winter months, I find that it does have benefits, kind of like if you go pick up one of those little suet things for the wild birds in the winter. Eric made this from some leftover moose tallow that we had, and it was melted and he mixed it in with a bunch of grain. So we have yet to give this to them, and we're going to give this to them. So usually if we're giving them fat, it's lard or tallow. Right here I have some leftover grease from when we rendered the lard and cracklings. And I just wouldn't give them too much fat. It's more like in moderation every once in a while. Fat also provides 2 times the amount of energy when compared to protein or carbohydrates. We also add quite a bit of carbohydrates to their food, and potatoes is one of them that comes to mind. Corn. You can do things like bread, rice, and pasta. I don't actually give those things to our chickens, but you just want to be, again, just in moderation, a little bit more as a treat because they burn up really quickly, and I think that they can be a little bit too much for your chickens. So these ones, we have to go through this whole box. We have a whole bunch of sprouting potatoes that we're going to be getting ready for the chickens. This probably goes without saying, but produce, they love greens and berries and fruits like that. We give them a lot from our garden in the summer months. That's when we can give them a lot from there, and we really don't have anything like that to give to them in the winter. But if you can, that's great to give to them. Chickens love that. The only thing I really have at this time of the year is squash. So we're cutting up a squash for them today along with the potatoes. And I forgot to mention it, but we will be feeding them some eggs. So eggs are a really great source of protein to feed back to your chickens. And you may be thinking like, why would I do that? You know what I mean? Don't I have chickens in order to get the eggs and eat them? We have an excess right now. We do keep a lot of chickens on hand in order just to kind of like barter with them, maybe gift them. We feed a lot to our dogs, and we do kind of plan on feeding some of them back to the animals itself. So it's really like the ultimate nutrition in this egg. A few other random things is oatmeal. You can make oatmeal, cornbread. We have sourdough starter, and we also have kefir. So I give them the discard a lot from that, and then I do give them kefir yogurt, which they absolutely love and is great for them. That kind of leads me to supplements, and there's only really a few that Eric and I give on a routine basis. Garlic is one of them. I can't speak highly enough about garlic. It's wonderful. So we're going to be chopping up a little bit of that for them. Also, apple cider vinegar. That's probably not news to anyone, but you can put a little bit of that in their food. There's other herbs and things you could be giving them for digestive and immunity benefits. Cinnamon too. Cinnamon's a really great spice for chickens. So let's get them their food prep so we can get it out to them before we lose the daylight. There you have it. These are all done, and this may seem like a lot of effort to go through, but I know for Eric and I, we enjoy it. We feel like we are increasing their quality of life, and somehow that benefits them and us. I know it's not a good example now, but there have been months where it has been sub-zero temperatures, and we go in there and like I said, the chickens look like popsicles. So it's just nice to bring them something that kind of warms their spirits. The best part is too, they do not care about visual presentation. So this will suffice. We're gonna get this out to them. Hold up. Well, it's still snowing outside. It has been snowing for about a week, and we have been just keeping up with pushing it out and removing it. We were slowly but surely running out of room out there, but we started some sprouts and I wanted to show you how they're doing. I started these about 6 days ago. So these are sprouts. You're probably familiar with bean sprouts. I have this nifty little tray to grow these bad boys. These are specifically alfalfa seeds that we are sprouting. They're super easy to do. You just take the seeds that you want to sprout. Mung is another popular seed that you can sprout, and you disinfect them. We disinfected them in a little bit of vinegar, and then we soaked them for about 8 hours, and then I put them in these trays. And it's very simple after that. All you have to do is just water them twice a day, and I alternate the trays. I'll come in and I'll kind of put the bottom one at the top and then just do the same thing the next day. And what you end up with is these lovely little greens or sprouts. And Eric and I are a huge fan of sprouts. They are awesome on sandwiches, just anything really to give you a nice crunch, especially in the middle of winter. So I have to get these all cleaned up and prepared for today. It's really simple. You just take them all out. I'm gonna put them in this strainer and we're gonna rinse them really well. That's kind of the crucial thing you wanna do with sprouts, is just make sure that you are keeping them clean and rinsing them quite a bit. So we have a nice thick mat there. I'm actually gonna rinse all of them. Not all of the sprouts went. I think the majority of them did. And then sometimes the little seed or the hull falls off. To me, this is the perfect stage to eat them at. You can let them go a little bit longer, or you can take them, you can eat them a little bit sooner. And I think I put maybe like a half a teaspoon in each tray. You can see at the bottom is where the water collects. There you have it. Those are all rinsed and cleaned, and you want to rinse them pretty well at this stage. At least that's what I've read, because there can be bacteria buildup, and you just want to make sure they're clean. Just the nature of it, you're sprouting seeds in a moist environment. This is a good example of what's going on. So the seeds are in there. We have some that didn't actually sprout. Some of them did start to sprout, but they didn't catch up to their brothers and sisters. So we have full sprouts in here that look like that. These are amazing. They're delicious, and they're very easy to make at home. So definitely cool to try if you haven't. And you can grow them in a mason jar. You don't need to have that fancy little tray system over there. We're making something pretty cool today. We are going to be making Turkish bagels, or simit is what they are called. We already started our bread a little bit earlier, and it has been sufficiently rising. So it was very, very quick to make. We used a tablespoon of active dry yeast. I had about 1.25 cups of warm water. I added maybe 1/4 cup of olive oil, tablespoon of sugar, and probably about 4 cups of flour, and that's the dough. So it's really simple. We're gonna form the bagels now. Pretty exciting. We've never made these before. So one of the key things about these is how they are formed. I'm not very good at it yet. This is my first time, and my dough's a little bit fluffy and soft, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But you actually like roll them out really long like a snake, and then you twist the dough back on itself and twist it again, if that makes any sense, and then you fold it and you roll it, and now you have your shape. And that's kind of the thing with these, is they have a really cool twist when you cook them. And we're going to be dipping them in some molasses and then coating them with toasted sesame seeds. And I'm actually going to have Eric do that part for me. But I hope they turn out really good. They look awesome. They have like a dark coating, and they're real crispy or chewy, I guess, kind of like a bagel on the outside and then soft on the inside. Are you for real? It looks really good.
First batch is in the oven at 350, and this dough is very tricky. We watched some videos on how folks do this in Turkey, and they're pros at it, and it's very hard to do. So you gotta get this dough really thin, thinner than you think, and it's just difficult. So let's see if I can get this one rolled up.
That looks amazing. That looks pretty good. We're heating up some beans and lentils. We got this started a little bit earlier in the day. That's gonna be part of what we're eating for dinner. And the beans are, these beans are new to me. They're called 𝐬𝐚𝐥𝐿 bean. It says classic creamy bean with a thin skin, mild enough to soak up all the flavors of the cooking pot. Sounds amazing. I also added some lentils that we had. I think they're red lentils. The Simit is turning out pretty good so far. Two things I've noticed is I did need to crank up the heat, so I have it closer to 400. They just were not cooking at that lower temperature, and they're not as dark as I was hoping for. I think that may be because they use grape molasses, and we're using just the molasses we have on hand, so it must not be exactly the same as that. Once this batch comes out of the oven, I think we're all ready to eat. That is done. Just getting warm now. Well, our first attempt at Simit went it went okay. This is a good example of like the twists that stayed and how they baked and they didn't like fuse together. This other one over here looks like a bagel. So I can't really say there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not quite sure this is exactly how they're supposed to look, and I think they're gonna taste really good. They have like a crunchy exterior and a really soft inside. And they smell amazing because of the toasted sesame seeds. So Eric did a lovely job making these little plates for us. It's good. They say it's like a street food, and I was doing a little bit of reading. Typically it's eaten for breakfast with a few other little foods. The beans and the lentils was just our idea because we thought that there was a little circular hole in there and we wanted to stuff it with something. So we're gonna eat up and enjoy dinner. I don't even know how to tag it. It's pretty tasty. I'm so sorry. I peeked outside and I saw that it was going to be one of these amazing sunsets. Okay, so now that we all know I can't run, there is the most amazing colors at this time of the year. I don't know what it is, but with the clouds and the sun still being pretty low on the horizon, you get such spectacular colors. I can't even tell you what that looks like behind me. It's like a hot peachy pink right now with purples, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like. It's absolutely amazing.